How are you? Are we full of energy? Is this sustainable energy? Very important. I was actually coming out of Dartmouth College. I was actually a legislative aide for Senator John Chafee, and my first job was working on something that is a dinosaur relic of the past, Jimmy Carter's energy program from the 70s, working on coal conversion in New England for Senator Chafee. So I have a little bit of a timeline perspective on where we were then and where we are now. So I'm going to start with a couple stories. And this football will represent a couple things during my speech. But most importantly, this football is going to represent how you will deal and how you have dealt with the tragedies in your life, with the unpredictable things in life. All of us have had them. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. My best friend in Kansas City was a guy named Steve Willis. And as I was giving a speech last week, I found in my pocket the wedding invitation of his daughter. And it made me think very deeply about Steve, because Steve had tried to make it in the NFL, but he had something that most of us don't have to deal with. His father was murdered when he was 10. He did not have a father. He had an alcoholic stepfather. And yet Steve had turned around his life, even though he didn't make it in the NFL, raised 3 kids who were college athletes, and he was Lauren, his oldest daughter, marrying former quarterback from KU, and now already an assistant head coach. And I thought, how fantastic it is, someone like that had that kind of tragedy and has become such a father. And he told me this story, and I remember it. When Lauren was born, he called me up that night and he said, I looked at her and I took her in my arms and I said, I'm going to be the father to you that I never had. I thought, how many of us can do that? And that leads into the second story, because I had a friend named Harry Wilson at Dartmouth College who'd been my holder, much like Brad's going to be, and you're going to be the snapper, young man. And Harry was good-looking, African-American wide receiver, number 29, quiet, calm, tremendous resolve, but sort of a blue flame, a low-burning flame. Didn't have to talk about what he did. He just was a leader by example. I played with him on the baseball team and on the football team. He went on to the University of Virginia Law School, and he invited me during the midst of my NFL career to do one of the most honorable things I've ever done. I just was so excited to help him. From Richmond, Virginia, he had founded the African American Sports Hall of Fame, and he asked me to be a board member. And so I was on that board for a number of years, and then Harry got a very serious case of diabetes and cancer. And about 6 years ago, I called up, and his son answered the phone. And I knew his son was a good athlete. I knew he was in college and had some real potential, was playing both baseball and football. And his son came back to the phone and said, because I wanted to talk to Harry before he died. And he said, Harry, my father can't speak to you. So I never got to talk to Harry again. Fast forward to this year and last year. Late in the season last year, I'm watching the Seattle Seahawks. This quarterback. And suddenly I realized, this is Russell Wilson. This is Harry Wilson's son. And I thought, whew, is he the embodiment of my friend Harry Wilson? And any of you, whether you're Broncos fans or Seattle fans for the Super Bowl, I think you can appreciate what kind of leader he is. And frankly, he's probably the opposite of Richard Sherman, right? Richard Sherman's over here, look at me, I'm the greatest. And Russell Wilson is the perfect antidote for the rest of the team, keeping them focused no matter how bad things get, and no matter how much tragedy he endured by losing his father, who was so important to him, Do you see him carrying that weight? He channels it into something productive. He channels his energy into something that is a sustainable energy. And he does say, I will say, he says, I am playing for an audience of one, for God. And if I please him, that's all I have to worry about. So there's a simplicity to Harry Wilson. And I wanted to share that with you because today's message, I hope you'll take home with you, is about all of us dealing with these unique, unpredictable tragedies that either spur us on to greatness or take us down a path of bitterness, sadness, and a loss of soulfulness in our lives. So my speech is, that's pretty heavy-duty stuff, so we'll lighten it up a little bit now. But hi, Meg. Can you catch this? So that's what I'm trying to do. Good catch. And Meg has a great manicure, so I didn't want to hurt it. I tried to get her to take some pressure out of the ball so it wouldn't be so hard. Can you throw back?
Pressure. All right.
Yay. Think about the interactions. You had the energy executive from California talking about relationships. We've all heard the cliche about relationships. So every time we take this ball from someone else, we take their energy, whether it's good or bad. And what do we do with it? So my talk today is the lessons I learned as a kicker, but also hopefully a lot more about what we do with our careers and the many careers we may have in our life. Naked and alone with 80,000 people, it just kind of catches your attention. It's what you feel like when you run on the field as an NFL player. It's that unique sense of being exposed, and as a kicker, unlike an offensive lineman or other positions, it really is just you. And whether you had a bad hold or a bad snap, whether the wind was blowing, whether one of those very special linemen 20 feet away yelling very special, loving things about your mother, things that you really didn't think he should know. My mother is not a prostitute. Or whether you just stay focused to get it done, because no one cares. You may feel this way. No one cares about anything else. You either get it done, you deliver it to your customers when there's an energy. The young lady was just saying, the Twitters usually are about, we've had an energy short in this neighborhood or whatever. What do you do with it? So the 6 P's, I've refined it to, number one, and most importantly, if you don't have this, all the other things are made much more difficult. Pinpoint focus. What do you choose to focus on when something tragic happens, when a great avalanche of things happen? 2, and I'll tell a story later about this, it's so powerful, is what is the source of your passion? And do you listen to it? Do you have a great relationship, forget about everybody else, with yourself? Do you have the ability to talk to yourself and to listen? I'll choose to say God, but listen to the higher power, listen to the inner voice inside you that brings out your best. Can you do that on a regular basis so that you don't let the trivial things drag you and distract you? Just like those wonderful guys 20 feet away who are about 6'5", 270 pounds, 36-inch vertical leap, who want to block you and block your kick and kill you if they can, probably eat you if they had the chance. And then the third one is much easier if you have the first 2, which is persistence. And so I'll go through my story, but persistence is what it's all about. And I'm going to go through a slide here in a second about the power of the mind, because I've done a little research on this organization. I spoke to a group of construction engineers last week, but you're energy engineers. There's an intellectual caliber here and a theoretical caliber to you that requires you to think not only where we are and here's what we're doing right now, but where are we going? Like Wayne Gretzky, are we able to skate to where the puck's going to be? 6,000 energy electrical cars, right, in California now. What will it be 10 years from now? And are we able to get all the infrastructure in place to make that happen? And then there's the process, because once we work through persistence, we're working through tragedies, humiliations, being cut in my circumstances 11 times. And yet I began to look at those rejections as not so bad. It took a while. I began to look at them as those opportunities to grow. And so I'll get a little technical here because I think you can handle it. There are lots of great books out there about the brain. And I had to learn to bring my focus and harness myself to be better and to give up a job working in the United States Senate for the Senate Commerce Committee to try my 12th time. I was one of only 11 lawyers, and yet I did, and then I played 17 years. And it was that process of discipline where I put myself in loving putting myself through all of that preparation, like all of you have to do, to be not just average, to be doing something you love doing. Because if you're in here today, I will be certainly one that will say, if you don't love what you're doing, even though it's a job and it pays the bills, you're not maximizing why you were here, why you were put here. And that conversation with yourself is everything. And that, of course, then leads to purpose. Because when we have purpose, and I do a lot of work with American Indian youth, and of course, kids, we talked about Champions Against Bullying, which may well be the next major program of the NFL. Very proud to say that. What does a bully take away from another person if it isn't the sense of self-esteem and purpose, the sense of value, the sense of my life matters? And who's in charge of that if it isn't us? Because whether we want someone else to help us, in the end, the first line of defense when difficult, tragic, horrible, bad things happen is our own sense of our purpose and who we are. So we won't be knocked off stride. If I missed a field goal, which was not fun, it was the worst thing in the world to look up and see a ball missing, what did I do with that? Did I learn from it? So what we've learned about the brain is interesting. There's a book called Thinking. There's a book called How We Decide. Some great books out there that are sort of past what our friend Tony Robbins or Deepak Chopra or some of the other great self-help people write about, because it's really the technical thing. So you all know the frontal lobe, right? This part right here is the part that develops for men in about 25, and Meg, it was probably about 15, because the women always tend to develop faster. And it's the prioritization, how we sort through what's important in our lives. And it's interesting because I made it in the NFL at 24, after all those rejections. Right behind the frontal lobe is a place that I can't pronounce, but it's called the ACC. And it's very crucial to this message today. It is the arbiter of our associations and what we think is good for us and we want to pull our behavior towards or run from. And it also has the oh, shh, if you want to, I won't say the word, response when it's wrong. So what we've learned about the ACC is that it literally is proving that we only learn by our mistakes. We only learn by our mistakes. That's it. We only learn from the bad stuff. We learn and we confirm, if you will, from the good things. But it's the bad things and the things that we don't get right that are the way that our brain will adjust. So even in our DNA, we've evolved that way. And I was lucky enough to play with Joe Montana, who told the same stories, that it was the rejections that made him the great player that he was, the fact that he would put himself out there naked and alone with 80,000 people. Again and again, even when he was intercepted, even when he was hit and sacked by Lawrence Taylor and Leonard Marshall in that playoff game in San Francisco in 1990, and go back and win another Super Bowl. Or, by the way, Peyton Manning, with a neck surgery that most people thought was going to end his career. Look what he did this year. Most yards ever, most touchdown passes, etc. So we'll get back to this. Finally, the sense of power, which is energy. You know, isn't that what we're trying to do with our children? How many of you have children? Okay, so you are productive. You know, and isn't it as models for our children 1,000 times past what we say, what we do? And the power we give our children, the sense that they have power. That's hope, that's direction, that's purpose, that's all those things in one. What separates out the great players in the NFL is never are you stronger, faster, better athlete. It's what do you do with the mistakes? Do you keep working to get better? The subtext of this, too, is what are your goals? And what are you willing to sacrifice for them? And how do you want to feel when you achieve them? How will you respond when that opportunity presents itself? And then, in the end, that process, that passion, it leads to a real sense of power. Because it's not anybody else's power. It's the one we've created and sustained and nurtured in ourselves. The ultimate sustainable power. And I can tell you, as I look at that picture of my teammates waiting in the tunnel, right outside the tunnel, 80,000 people, it's scary. But there's so much beauty in that fear that I'm willing to take the risk to go out there and make myself naked alone at 80,000 people. Because I know I can only get better by putting myself out there again and again. And now, through my preparation, my persistence, and my focus, I was able to, break all these records. But most importantly, the most important record is that glass ceiling inside ourselves of what we think we're capable of. What is that for you? What have you not yet achieved? Pinpoint focus, passion, process. Persistence, purpose, so that present moment sense is right with you every second. And finally, the power is people and angels, I call them angels, will come into your life that are meant for you, that will help you achieve and pull you towards where you're meant to be. One of my favorite quotes, and I think Russell Wilson likes this quote, by the way. It's not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man who is actually, or the woman, that is in the arena marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly again and again, who in the end knows the triumph of high achievement. And if he or she fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that they will never be lost with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Thank you so much for your time, your focus, your attention, and your heart. Bless you. Thank you.